Hello, this is Superintendent Bill Barnes here to talk to you about some capital improvements that we're planning. And we've had a number of meetings throughout the spring to talk about this, and we wanted to share it virtually with you as well today. At the end, you'll have an opportunity to provide us some feedback. So please make sure that as I'm talking through this, that you have a good understanding of the different projects and the different things that we're working on. So as we think about capital improvements, we have to root it in our strategic plan. In particular, we believe in partnerships between the family, community, and education stakeholders for the success of GLPS. That belief statement is what's driving me to share this with you today, because as we continue our capital projects planning, we need to make sure that we're getting input and feedback from all of you as well. So to start, Comet Country is growing. For example, there's Avenue Apartments in Grand Ledge, which is a 326 unit multifamily residential community. There's additional developments throughout Grand Ledge and Delta Township that are slated for the next few years, with the equivalent of about 1,000 units. So when we think about all of that housing coming into our district, we need to make sure that we're purposely planning to support those incoming families and the students that they will inevitably bring with them. So right now, just to get a snapshot of who we are as a district, Grand Ledge Public Schools has about 5,480 students and 725 staff and 8 bargaining units. We have about 200 English learners, and we're about 30% free and reduced lunch. And you can see the breakdown by race and ethnicity there as well. And you can see that our district is made up of 2 early childhood centers, 4 elementary schools, an intermediate school, a middle school, and a high school, as well as an operations building and central office, and that we're situated in about 125 square miles here in mid-Michigan across 3 counties. So we serve many, many families in a wide variety of areas. When we look at our enrollment over the past 4 or 5 years, Grand Ledge Public Schools is one of the few districts in the area that has continued to grow since the pandemic. Many of the districts around us have shrunk, but Grand Ledge Public Schools has continued to grow. And as I showed you in a previous slide, we're now up to about 5,480. One of the important things to note as well, because I often get this question, is that as we've gone through 21, 22, 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25, and then to 25 and 26. We've been more targeted with our school of choice applications as well. Back in 21, 22, we had unlimited schools of choice for grades kindergarten through 9th grade. And this year, for the fall of 26, the board approved unlimited schools of choice for kindergarten and first grade only. And we have a limited window in the summer, which will create a lottery for a few seats. But really what we've done each year is looked at where we have space available. And then we've also looked at trends over the past 10 years as to where enrollment occurs to make sure that we're maximizing programming, but also making sure that we have room for all of the students that are enrolling in our district. At the same time, we've also seen an increase in our student achievement. This represents all of the state testing in one big bucket. So if we take all of our M-STEP, PSAT, SAT, and put them all together, and then look at the percent proficiency, you can see that Grand Ledge Public Schools growth has been steady since 2022. And that's in comparison to the state of Michigan, which has steadily declined since 2022. And then the central region, so the central part of the state, has been very inconsistent, as well as Eaton-Risa has been inconsistent. And we're significantly higher than all of them. So what that tells us is as our enrollment has increased, our programmings and our systems have been well developed to meet the needs of all of our learners. Right now, as you may or may not know, we are winding down a 2018 bond proposal. And so in that 2018 bond, we did a number of things that tremendously impacted the district. We restructured. If you recall, prior to this bond, we had kindergarten building in addition to 1-6 elementary schools. And the middle school was at Hayes, and Beagle was an elementary school. Holbrook was an early childhood center. So this bond really helped us reconfigure the district into what it is today. We also added classrooms across the district. We added safety improvements across the district. Prior to this bond, we did not have secure entrances in every building with a vestibule, and now we do. So if you come to our buildings, you know that you have to be buzzed into a vestibule and then buzzed into the office. That was part of this bond. We made infrastructure improvements across the district from HVAC to electrical to plumbing. In particular, a very noticeable one is the improvement of HVAC systems at the high school. We added instructional spaces, including a gym at Holbrook, including a number of classrooms, including new band and choir rooms at the high school. So a number of instructional spaces. And then we also add additional arts and athletic spaces. So the new fine arts entrance at the high school, the new weight room, the new track, all those were part of the current bond project. So currently, as we're winding down this bond, we're working on building a Delta Center gym, which increases instructional spaces. Many people don't realize if you don't have a gym and a cafeteria in an elementary school, that really constricts your schedule because that means that we have to use the gym as a cafeteria. And so in the middle of the day, we can't use it as an instructional space. We're also adding additional Wacusta classrooms right now. As a reminder, we built Wacusta with the idea that as Wacusta grew, we would be able to efficiently and inexpensively add on. And so we're doing that right now. And then we're building the Morris building. So this is the property that was gifted to us by Dave and Betty Morris. And we're creating an ag and natural science building on there that should be ready to roll by the middle of the 26-27 school year. So for future planning, we need to continue to expand instructional spaces. As I said, we expect to continue to grow. And right now, many of our buildings continue to be tight on space. And then we have continued infrastructure improvements that need to happen. And so right now, we're in the planning process to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of our buildings and all of our students. So we currently are in the middle of a window of an opportunity. When the 2018 bond is paid off in small increments, the millage rate drops very slightly over a long span of time. However, if we were to maintain the current rate, so no increase, we could actually open a window of opportunity that would allow us to generate a lot of funds that would meet some of our infrastructure needs without having to increase the millage rate over the current rates. And so that's something that we're looking at and considering as we go through this planning process as well. So we look at the background in our process for capital improvement planning. In 2021, the voters approved a sinking fund, which we appreciate very much, which allows us to maintain our facilities, and it generates about $1.7 million a year. In 2022, in the midst of the current bond, we began prioritizing the projects because COVID construction costs meant that we had to rethink how we were spending those dollars and how we were ensuring that we were meeting all of the promises that we made in the 2018 bond. So in 2022, we prioritized the remaining projects to ensure that we could get them all done in a way that made the most sense. We also then looked at things on that list that were absolutely necessary, as well as things would have been nice to have if money allowed. And so we've been talking about that since 2022 to ensure that we are meeting the most urgent needs with the current bond funds, and then looking at potential other funding sources or to delay some of the other projects that were not as necessary. And then the district completed a facilities management plan, which mapped out all of the facilities needs that we have over really the next 20 to 25 years. And that allows us to plan accordingly. It allows us to plan effectively for the needs that we have from a budget standpoint and a project management standpoint. Also in 2025, we issued an RFP for an architectural firm and a construction manager. This is not required by law, but the district felt like it was very important that we were transparent and that we had a partner in this planning. So we had great interest from many construction managers and architects. We went through a rigorous review and interview process. And then the board appointed TMP and Clark to assist with our planning. So TMP is the architecture firm that we're working with, and Clark is our construction managers. So starting in 2026, our teams walked through our facilities to understand the needs and the conditions and the use of those facilities. We've reviewed our facilities management plan and our existing list of priorities, and we created a new up-to-date list of potential upgrades. And then we've gotten cost estimates from Clark, and then we were hosting the staff and community forums that I referenced earlier throughout the end of April. And I'm now sharing this with you today. So when we think of the scope of potential upgrades by building, I'm going to go through this list, and I want to point out that the first slide for each one is the infrastructure stuff. It's the things that you don't see. And some of it is way into the future. But we included it on these slides because we wanted to be clear that we are actually thinking about these things and that we're planning for them so that we're ready to deal with them when that time comes in the future. I also do want to point out that even with that 0 mil increase above our current rates, we can't afford all of these things. And so part of the purpose of this presentation, as well as the community forums, was to get some input as to the priorities of our community and our staff so that we can make some decisions about what we need to do next. So with that, I'm going to go through each of these. As we go through the slides, just as a reference point, the yellow means that it's a minor renovation. Those are facelifts, essentially. The orange is a major renovation, which means that we have to potentially knock down walls, we have to pull up floors, we have to do some major renovating. And then red represents additions. So this would be new construction added to our buildings. So first up is Delta Mills. Delta Mills is our early childhood center. It's in the northeast corner of our district, and it's a very small building. It only has 5 classrooms. But looking ahead to the future, we're going to have to replace the boiler, the domestic water heater. It needs a new well, and it's going to need some additional controls. Think of controls like your thermostat app on your phone. It allows us to control our HVAC systems remotely. And then security film and window graphics. And both of those are from a security standpoint. The window graphics allow us to see out, but it doesn't allow people to see in on certain windows within the building. So what we're looking at for Delta Mills is 6 classrooms. This would allow us to expand early childhood programming. We know that as our district is growing, we have more families that are looking for pre-K programming, and Delta Mills is the place where that would happen. But if we were to add more classrooms, we would need to add new fire suppression systems and septic tanks for the classroom additions. Here's some images of what that could look like. Please note that these are stock images, so this is not saying that we're getting orange chairs and triangle desks. It's just an example of what early childhood spaces could look like, and you'll see that in each one of these building sets of slides. So at NEF, everything is really the infrastructure upgrades. NEF is landlocked. This is the building that's in front of the high school, and there's not room to really expand it. However, we do need some internal materials, including water heaters, chillers, water softeners, LED upgrades, wall packs, and exterior lighting. Again, the window graphics, some carpet replacement, and then some additional upgrades to our playground and some fire suppression updates. Moving on to Delta Center. Delta Center, as a reminder, is currently getting a new gym, and it got a couple new classrooms in the current bond. These are again, the infrastructure upgrades that Delta Center needs: water heaters, chillers, train controls, lighting replacements. This past summer, we had Adventure Club at Delta Center and in the gym, and the HVAC system in the gym does not work very well, so that needs to be replaced. It was very, very hot in the gym, very uncomfortable, and not something we can sustain long term without some updated HVAC systems. And so then we need some renovations, some potential fire suppression system upgrades, as well as some roof replacements and parking lot repaving. And when we think about the potential to add on to Delta Center, a couple of classrooms would be very helpful. You can see to the north at the top, this is where we're adding the new gym. To the east is the new hallway that we added in the current bond with the 2 new classrooms. So the areas in red are the potential location of new classrooms. The staff likes actually the 2 classrooms to the south best because that fits best with the educational programming in the building, but those are options that would be available at Delta Center. So again, what some classrooms could look like in that new setting. Holbrook Elementary, again, we have all the infrastructure pieces: water heaters, fire suppression system, boiler replacements, roof replacements. And again, this is where I said that some of these dates are far outside the bounds of what we're talking about now, like 2045. But again, we wanted to make clear to all of you that those are things that we're thinking about and planning for the future. And then again, the security film and the window graphics. So Holbrook Elementary is out of space. We right now have teachers that have to share classrooms. And so we could add potentially up to 5 classrooms at Holbrook. The first place would be at the back near the gym. This is where the current bus loop is. We could add 3 classrooms and create basically a specials wing on the building, which would be very helpful and convenient. We could also add 2 classrooms near the front. If you're familiar with the building, this is where the ramp is. The challenge with the 2 classrooms at the front is that we would then have to adjust the parking lot loop, so we'd have to reconfigure traffic flows in the front of the building. Again, some stock images of what classroom spaces could look like. Moving on to Wacusta, this is obviously our newest building, and so when we think about infrastructure upgrades, those are far into the future. We are paving the parking lot this summer, And so that parking lot won't need to be redone until 2049. But it obviously very much needs to be replaced now. There are a lot of potholes, and so that's happening at the end of June or July. The one addition that we do need to add to Wacusta is the cafeteria. As a reminder, having a gym and a cafeteria in an elementary school allows the gym to be better used as an instructional space. It helps with scheduling and it helps with just the flow of the day and in the building. This map does not show the four new classrooms, which are at the end of the hallway on the western leg of the building. So down at the bottom. We've added the four new classrooms as Wacusta has expanded. We also have the potential to add four new classrooms on the eastern wing as well, which would be useful in the future if we need to. And again, here's a couple examples of what a cafeteria could look like at Wacusta Elementary School. So moving on to Willow Ridge, again, infrastructure changes that need to be made, domestic hot water heater, LED lighting, roof replacements, window graphics. Willow Ridge is very tight on space, even though we added two new classrooms. You can see the two new classrooms that are outlined in red at the end of the hallway. They're on the north side of the building, the northeast side of the building. But we still have staff that are using offices in the backs of other staff's classrooms. We have some of our itinerant staff that are essentially using closets as offices. So adding new classrooms would be very helpful. You can see the potential place where we could add those on the map, as well as some renovations in the media center and a renovation of the old gym into a cafeteria as we potentially add a new gym. And you can see the location for the addition of the gym would be where the current playground is, which would mean that we would need to reconfigure and update the playground, which really needs to be done anyway. And so again, this would create flexibility of space and it would allow for the gym to be a better used instructional space during the day. So again, some images of what that could look like. And then we move on to Hayes. As a reminder, Hayes is where all of our elementary schools come together. And so as we're growing and expanding in our elementary schools, we need to have accompanying growth and expansion within Hayes. So we have the infrastructure needs that you can see here, including water heaters, water softeners, some underground sanitary that needs to be upgraded, some partial classroom carpet replacement, window graphics, and so on. So looking at the map of where those things could go, a huge issue at Hayes right now is that we have to run 4 lunches because the cafeteria is not big enough to fit all of our students. And so we need to expand the cafeteria, which would then create some flexibility to add some new classroom spaces. We could also add some new classrooms down on the southern end of the building that you can see on the map here. Which would be actually to the east with the way that the building is configured, along with some renovations, minor renovations in the media center and upgrades for the bathrooms. Many of these bathrooms have not been upgraded since the 1980s, and so we do need to renovate those bathrooms. So creating some additional classrooms, expanding the cafeteria, and renovating the bathrooms are the big pieces that need to be done at Hayes. And again, you can see some examples of what that might look like. Looking at Beagle, a lot of upgrades happened at Beagle in the current bond as we converted it from an elementary school back into a middle school. There are pieces that need to be completed. One of the items I'd like to highlight is the boiler and the chiller in the pool. The life cycle of those pieces, because of the condition of the pool, is often shorter than the life cycle of a boiler or chiller not in a pool area. However, we have taken very good care of those, and while those are the manufacturer recommendations, we will be obviously monitoring and looking at those to maximize the life of them. So at Beagle, right now we have some teachers that are sharing classrooms as well, and so we do need some additional classroom spaces. To the south of the building, you can see we can add 4 classrooms, 2 upstairs and 2 downstairs. Beagle is pretty landlocked. There's not a lot of space for us to grow and expand at Beagle, primarily because of the wetlands on a variety of sides, creeks on a variety of sides, and then parking lots and other things and neighborhoods that box us in. But this is a spot where we could add some additional classrooms. And then this is what a classroom space could look like. And then the high school, again, we have infrastructure upgrades inside We've done a lot of upgrades within this current bond, but there's still ongoing maintenance costs and things that we need to do, including the bus loop resurfacing. So we've redone all the parking lots around the high school, with the exception of the bus loop off Kent Street, which does need to be redone. So we look at what we want to do with the high school. I mentioned that we reprioritized bond items in the 2018 bond, and one of the things that was on the list that was not able to be done was the renovation of the high school science classrooms. The classrooms have not been renovated in decades, and they're not really up to par with 21st century learning. So that's in the orange by the baseball field. Those would be the science lab renovations. We would also need to do some upgrades within the media center and then remodel the restrooms. Many of these restrooms, again, are from the 1980s and need to be upgraded and redone. In addition, our auditorium needs some upgrades. Right now, the chairs, we can no longer get parts for them. So if you're there, you might notice that a chair or two doesn't have an arm on it. It's because if those break, we cannot replace them. In addition, we have lighting upgrades that need to happen, as well as carpet, and just a general facelift in the space. Uh, Another renovation that we're proposing at the high school is the addition of a new competition gym that would be used for our gym classes and then also for our athletics. The gym that we have right now is too small. For example, if you go to an event there, when the bleachers are out, you have to walk on the court to get to your seats, which is not ideal. The bleachers need to be replaced anyway because they're quite old and don't always work well. And so the cost to build a new competition gym that brings our district up to speed with where we should be as a Division I school will allow us to then actually have some additional athletic spaces as well as instructional spaces. And then the current gym would be renovated as an indoor multi-purpose space. And so we could put turf there. We could put multi-purpose flooring in there that would be able to be used by our arts programs like the marching band, as well as by our athletic programs, as well as by our gym classes. And so this would get us a large indoor recreational space without having to build a completely separate building, and would meet many, many of the needs that we have. So this plan would also then require us to move the tennis courts because the new competition gym would take up some parking. The tennis courts need to be replaced anyway. They are made of asphalt and they crack. And so the cost to upkeep asphalt courts is very actually cost prohibited. In addition, the location does not allow for great drainage. If you can picture where they are, they're near the football stadium and they're on multi-levels on a hill, and the water does not drain well underneath them, which also contributes to the cracking that occurs. So what we're proposing then is to move those tennis courts, and these are two potential locations. We have not fully landed on one yet. This would be up near the track. We would use compressed concrete, which has about a 50-year lasting life as opposed to the 10 or so year of life that an asphalt court has. So we're looking right now at 8 tennis courts plus 4 pickleball courts, and then we would expand parking in this area as well. If anyone has ever been to a track meet while a softball game is going on, you know that we need more parking on this end of our campus. And so adding the tennis courts would also necessitate some additional parking, which would help serve all of those programs. So again, some renderings of what those might look like: library spaces, classroom spaces, what a gym could potentially look like. And when we talk about the track, please note that this is an example of what that looks like. So you can actually go to the bleachers from the top and don't have to walk across the court. And then this is what a potential indoor athletic space could look like as well. Again, it could be used for marching band, it could be used for athletics, and it could be used for gym classes or other classes in the high school. And then this is a rendering of what tennis courts could potentially look like as well. Finally, we have some athletic infrastructure upgrades that need to happen, including stadium fencing, stadium lights, auxiliary gym, irrigation systems, additional parking at the track, and then sidewalk and a pad on the east side of the track. If you've been to our new track, you know that the sidewalk goes around the sides but does not connect in the back. We know we need some additional seating, so some bleachers, and that sidewalk should go to bleachers on the other side of the track. And then wrapping it up, we have Sawden. Sawden is our administration building. It has some upgrades that need to happen. It's a very old building, built in 1929. That is not a typo. There is a fan that is from 1934 unit that is on the gym that needs to be replaced. We have some ventilators. We have some roof replacements. And then we also have our technology offices here with our servers. And so we needed to update our uninterrupted power supply, which helps maintain all of our data if the power goes out. And then if we're looking at operations, there were some upgrades in the current bond, but we do have some parking lot upgrades and some lighting that needs to happen as well. And then finally, technology and infrastructure. We always are upgrading our instructional technology. As you know, we have student devices, we have staff devices, we have a number of technology items that need to continue to be updated. And then we also are looking at rekeying and upgrading the card readers and the fobs on all of our buildings. This increases security. It allows us to have a better system for maintaining entry and exit into classrooms and into the buildings. And so this is a system that needs to be upgraded as well. So next steps, in April, we had our forums, and now you have this information. Our professional teams and district leaders will analyze the feedback from staff and the community to finalize potential bond program scope. We would ask at the end of this that you would fill out one of those forms as well. That information will be used to help us understand what your priorities are. And then in June, we would look at potential bond program scope and present that to our Board of Education so they can decide how we will proceed. And then throughout July through November, we would develop communication materials and inform the community about our facilities and our plans. So what we're asking you to do today is to prioritize these potential upgrades. You can see the columns on the form are things that are critical, they're needed now, they're important to address soon, or they're a future initiative. So you are welcome to make everything critical or make nothing critical. It's entirely up to you. If you have notes or thoughts or ideas, you can add those to the form as well. But this will allow us to gather some input and to help us form the plan for the next step. So with that, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this. For those that attended the forum, thank you for attending the forum, and thank you very much for taking time to provide us with your feedback. As we know, as a school district goes, so goes its community, and as a community goes, so goes a school district. And so we're very proud to be a part of this community and to be the school district that is able to serve all of Comet Country. Thank you.